The night my father retired from politics was the night I was officially erased. They held the gala in one of those old marble halls in D.C., the kind with oil portraits of men who never smiled, and ceilings painted to make you feel small. I'd barely made it through security before a junior staffer, clipboard in hand, greeted me like I was lost luggage. "You're not on the family table list, Miss Morgan. We have you, back row center." No mistake. Just protocol. I took my seat. At a table full of distant cousins and former aides who barely remembered my name. The lights dimmed, and the screen above the podium flickered to life with a tribute video. The legacy of Senator Robert Morgan. There were photos of family vacations, campaign trails, charity events. Victoria was in nearly every frame, golden-haired, and smiling like the future. I showed up twice, once in the background of a 4th of July picture, blurry and blinking, once in a childhood clip, where my father gently shifted me out of the camera's view as Victoria gave her first speech at age 9. The applause was thunderous when he took the stage. My father looked every bit the statesman, silver hair, controlled, warmth, gravitas baked into every syllable. But it was what he said that gutted me. And now, he smiled, I pass the torch to the person most deserving of it, the one who truly carries the Morgan legacy in her blood. He didn't look at me. Not once. Victoria stood. The crowd roared, and I sat frozen in place, staring at the empty champagne glass in front of me, trying to keep my expression from cracking. Afterward, I waited for the usual polite hug, the perfunctory, "You looked lovely tonight," but Victoria swept past me on her way to the press wall. My mother approached instead. Cold eyes. Flawless pearls. "You don't belong in this world, Lily," she said quietly. "You never did." And just like that, the lights dimmed inside me. Later that night, I discovered my name had been removed from the Morgan Foundation trust records. My family email was deactivated, my health insurance severed. It was as if I had never been part of them at all. No yelling, no dramatic fallout, just a precise deletion, like a clerical error finally corrected. 2 days later, I returned to my apartment, a crumbling walk-up in Arlington my father had always called a phase. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I just kept replaying the moment he said "in her blood" like a blade under my skin. Around 4 a.m., I opened the closet to grab an old blanket and noticed a box I hadn't touched in years. An old, dented shoebox my grandmother had given me shortly before she passed. It was labeled "Lily, when you're ready." Inside, beneath a bundle of handwritten letters and dried lavender, was an envelope. A photo slipped out first. A woman, early 30s, striking eyes, dark curls pulled back, stood in front of a courthouse, holding a protest sign. I'd never seen her before in my life. Then came the certificate. Name, Lily Rose. Mother, Celeste Rose. Father, unknown. Date of birth, September 18th. Hospital, Arlington General. My hand started shaking. I flipped the paper over. A handwritten note was attached. "Lily, I wanted to tell you the truth myself, but I feared they'd never let you hear it. Celeste was your real mother. Brilliant, brave, and dangerous to the wrong people. The Morgans took you in not out of charity, but to silence her legacy. They never meant for you to belong. Grandma." I sat on the floor of my apartment, the ceiling fan ticking overhead like a slow, indifferent clock. Everything made sense in the worst way. The coldness, the distance, the way they tolerated me, shaped me, then discarded me when the optics no longer served them. I was never a daughter. I was never a Morgan. I was leverage, a secret, an adopted ghost in the house of American royalty. I thought the moment at the gala was the worst it could get, being erased in front of 1,000 strangers. But this was existential grief, a loss of self I didn't even know I was allowed to mourn. I didn't cry. I just sat there, stunned into silence, staring at the name Celeste like it was a doorway I had just found bricked up behind a wall. My whole life, I'd felt slightly out of phase with the people around me. Too quiet, too curious, too unwilling to play the performance. And now I understood why. I wasn't supposed to become one of them. I was born to undo them. But at that moment, I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel vengeful. I just felt alone. For 3 days, I barely left my apartment. The birth certificate sat next to my laptop like a second passport, daring me to believe it. Celeste Rose. No one in the family had ever spoken her name. Not once. I started digging. She had been a congressional aide in the early 90s. Bright, unshakable, known for pushing ethics complaints no one else would touch. The deeper I went, the clearer the pattern became. Celeste had collected damning evidence on several political families, including the Morgans. Then, she vanished. No obituary, no death certificate. Just disappeared. And 2 months later, a press release. The Morgans adopt a baby girl, Lily, in a private family matter. No interviews, no photos, just a line in a newsletter. I was a solution to a problem. A silencing strategy wrapped in a christening gown. Through archived forums and FOIA requests, I found whispers about a whistleblower's insurance file, rumored to include signed confessions, transaction records, even footage. Nothing concrete. Just rumor. But it had a name. Project Bellwether. My mother had hidden something powerful, and somehow the family had never found it. Or maybe they had. And it was why they'd decided to finally erase me. The first time I noticed the man, he was parked across the street in a dark sedan. He pretended to check his phone, but he never really looked down. The second time, he followed me through a bookstore, then disappeared before I could snap a photo. I wasn't paranoid. I was being watched. I started using burner phones, switched up my routes, bought blackout curtains. Still, every time I walked into my apartment, I felt a flicker of dread. Then the break-in happened. I came home to find the lock scratched, my documents shuffled, my hard drive gone. No valuables were taken, just my research. They weren't trying to rob me. They were trying to erase me again. I filed a police report, but I could tell the officer didn't believe me. Maybe a roommate? He suggested. I lived alone. The next morning, I received an unmarked envelope in my mailbox. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Stop digging, Lily. You're not ready for what you'll find. No signature, just that. The air in my lungs froze, but it was too late. They had underestimated me, again. Grandma's note said Celeste had hidden something, in a place they'd never look. Something older than bloodlines. I started tracing Celeste's life before the hill. College records, storage units, post office boxes under aliases, and finally, a lead. A safe deposit box in Northwest D.C., rented under the name Eleanor Bishop, Celeste's maternal grandmother. The account had gone untouched for over 25 years. The bank was quiet. I signed in with fake credentials I'd prepared the night before. My heart pounded as the manager led me to the vault. He slid the metal box onto the table and left me alone. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a thick manila envelope, a flash drive, and a small leather-bound journal. Nothing flashy. Nothing dramatic. Until I opened it. The journal was filled with Celeste's notes. Names, dates, accounts. She documented bribes disguised as donations, foreign payments routed through shell companies, affidavits from staffers too afraid to go public. Every page was meticulously organized and cross-referenced, but it was the flash drive that carried the storm. Video footage, grainy but clear, of my father and two other senators in a closed-door meeting, laughing about cleaning up loose ends and adopting the asset, me. I was the asset. They didn't even say my name, just called me a neutralizer. I paused the video and stared at my reflection on the black screen. This wasn't just political corruption. It was personal manipulation, executed with surgical precision. They'd stolen a child to bury a scandal, groomed her into silence, then cast her out when she grew inconvenient. And still, Celeste had outplayed them. Taped to the back of the journal was a second flash drive. On it, Project Bellwether, encrypted documents, passcodes, copies of everything Celeste had found, distributed across cloud storage accounts under pseudonyms, with a letter addressed to me. My Lily, if you're reading this, it means they finally tried to cut you out for good. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you, but I gave you the tools to burn it all down. You are not a mistake. You are my countermeasure. Let the truth find the light. I sat there in the vault room, the weight of my mother's words in my lap, and my past finally cracked open. Everything I'd ever been taught about loyalty, image, and family had been a lie. They never wanted me to belong. They wanted me to disappear. But they didn't know what I had now. I wasn't just my mother's daughter. I was her contingency plan. The night before the awards gala, I barely slept. I kept replaying the footage in my head. My father's voice, detached, confident, cruel. I watched the video 5 times. I wanted to feel numb. I didn't. I felt steady. They were about to be undone by the one thing they never believed I'd become: visible. Victoria was being honored for a lifetime of civic duty at a nationally televised event. The press was everywhere. The entire Morgan legacy was watching. I wore black. No jewelry. No statement. Just the drive in my coat pocket, and the pass I'd been able to get using an old family connection who still had a soul. They didn't even notice me slip past the security curtain. I waited behind the screen, watching as Victoria took the stage, smiling into the lights like she was born there. She spoke about legacy, service, truth, and then I walked out. The silence was instant and jagged. I didn't say a word. I simply plugged the drive into the projection system and stepped aside. The screen behind Victoria flickered, then played, the footage, the meeting, the laughter. The phrase neutralized the asset echoing across the room. Then the receipts. The offshore accounts, the payoffs, the names. No one moved. You could hear the building breathe, and then the shouting began. I left through the side door before security could reach me. My job was done. By morning, federal investigators had issued warrants. News networks were looping the footage. Editorials called it the greatest political betrayal since Watergate. My father was arrested at home. Victoria tried to hold a press conference but was shouted down by protesters. My mother didn't even release a statement. They had built their kingdom on stolen silence. And I had spoken. The week after the fallout, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt emptied. Not in a painful way, but in a quiet, root-deep way. Like something had been removed that had never belonged in me. I changed my name, Lily Rose. It was more than a name. It was a reclamation. A few months later, I stood at the opening of the Celeste Rose Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to protecting whistleblowers, truth-tellers, and adopted kids like me who had been used, manipulated, and silenced. I didn't speak at the ceremony. I let Celeste's letter speak instead. We printed her words in every program. Her signature graced the walls. Her face, the same one in that courthouse photo, was finally where it belonged. Visible, undeniable, proud. The Morgan estate was sold. The foundation bought it. We turned the library into an archive of Celeste's research and work. And the portrait that used to hang above the fireplace, the one of my father. It was replaced with Celeste. Sometimes, When I sit there late at night, I feel her in the room. Not as a ghost, but as an anchor. A lighthouse. A mother who didn't vanish. She just waited for me to find her. Victoria wrote me once from prison. She said we were still sisters, and that someday she hoped I'd understand why they did what they did. I didn't reply. Some patterns are better left broken, and some names are worth everything to reclaim. They tried to erase me to protect their legacy, but I was never meant to carry it. I was meant to end it. If this story hit you, drop a comment below. I read everyone. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more true revenge stories. Until next time, stay sharp.